the greatest sports debate show on the
For the first time since 2016, we have got a Game 7 in the NBA Finals.
championship rings, starring incredible
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Let's welcome the championship ring.
I am loving this feud. Don't you dare shit on this. Don't you dare.
I'm going to shit on the stipulation of it.
Oh my God, the stipulation is fantastic.
now.
I'm pulling a Josh Ungar this week because I'm not wasting no time with our little introduction because I thought that was the greatest World Series I've ever seen. I thought for the longest time that the Game 7 in 2016 between your Chicago Cubs and my Cleveland Indians at the time was the greatest baseball game I'd ever seen, and I did not think anything could top it until Saturday night. What a thrilling series between clearly the two best teams in baseball. Anybody could win it. It lasted a grand total of 75-ish innings if you include the extra innings between the two games. It was a World Series, in my opinion, Josh, that after a few dud years of the World Series, baseball absolutely needed.
That was the first Game 7 in the World Series since 2019.
And it was really, in my opinion at least, somewhat a forgettable game. It was between the Nationals and the Astros. That was the Nationals team that, of course, Bryce Harper had just left to go to the Philadelphia Phillies. The Astros were sort of in their prime of the cheating scandal coming off it. Obviously a couple years prior against the Dodgers, which that Dodgers-Astros series also went 7 games. I think people forget about it. But this World Series will go down along with the Cubs and Indians World Series as the two best World Series of this generation, in my opinion.
Yes, and unfortunately, the evil empire retained their crown. I very much dislike the Dodgers, thanks in large part to the rivalry with my Cubs. I also just don't like how, you're Shohei Ohtani, you get a contract. Freddie Freeman, you get a contract. We'll trade for Mookie Betts. Because we're the Dodgers.
Here's the thing. I know a lot of people are saying, oh my God, this is so bad for baseball. There's going to be a lockout in 2027. Oh my God. Folks, this is not just about the payroll with the Los Angeles Dodgers. The New York Mets have the highest payroll in baseball. The last time I checked, the New York Mets were not a playoff team this year, and the team that had a under 200 batting average as a team, the team who had a negative run differential and had the 30th payroll in baseball, and the Cleveland Guardians did. And the New York Yankees, they got this great payroll. They can sign anybody. They were dismantled by the Toronto Blue Jays in 4 games, the ALDS, and probably should have been a sweep. What the Dodgers do, and you can talk about deferring payments all you want, I don't care. They take a guy like Sasaki, who is a starter, and they say, hey, do you want to go to the bullpen? And he says, yes, sir, Dave Roberts. They take a guy like Mookie Betts. Hey, Mookie, our outfield is jammed. Do you want to go to maybe shortstop? Absolutely, manager Dave Roberts. And they buy in because this Dodgers ownership, which now also owns the Los Angeles Lakers, they've made mistakes. They moved off good players. There was years they could not get over the hump. There was none of this talk of, oh my God, the Dodgers are going to ruin baseball. The talk for years, even when they won that Mickey Mouse 2020 World Series, was, the Dodgers, they didn't win a real World Series. The difference between those Dodgers teams and the now back-to-back World Series champion Dodgers team is one guy, and it is the guy who was in Los Angeles, and one organization could have made him an absolute star. He goes across town and he becomes not only the face of baseball, but I think he helps in a way revitalize the sport. And that, my friends, is Shohei Ohtani.
Yes. And we talked about this a little bit last week at the end of the betting scandal conversation. I know it was more so his translator, but I believe he was involved with that. I know you gave me the information that Major League Baseball did their investigation and said he was clear. I don't believe that. But that's neither here nor there. It is amazing with the Dodgers, though, or as I like to call them, the evil empire, that they get a guy like Miguel Rojas, who hadn't been in the lineup since what, like early October or something?
And not only hits the tying home run in the top of the ninth of Game 7, but makes an incredible defensive play to save the game, or Toronto may have walked it off. And also, not only him, how about a guy like Max Muncy, who was cut by the Oakland Athletics? They said he couldn't hit. He was struggling all postseason. And what was the nugget that, and I'm being sarcastic here, your favorite announcer, Joe Davis,
He pissed me off throughout Game 7. There were times I wanted to mute the TV with how much Dodgers bias he was showing.
What was the anecdote that he gave about Max Muncy? That when they talked to Dave Roberts on Friday going into Game 6, David said, I know Max Muncy is struggling, but I have a feeling it's going to be Max Muncy who comes through in a big moment. And he hits the home run that, in my opinion, turned all the momentum. When Toronto was up 4-2, going to the top of the 8th, if you get out of that, you have a 2-run lead going to the 9th inning. Instead, a solo home run by Max Muncy cuts it to 1, and we know the rest is history. How about Dave Roberts inserting Pages in the center field? Paez, who goes over in the left field when it looked like it was over the left fielder's head. I said, that's it. The Blue Jays have won the World Series. Wait a minute. Not so fast. So those of you, in my opinion, Louise, that are complaining about the Dodgers winning the World Series, the Dodgers about 6 times, if they don't make a play in that game, lose the game. I think the Blue Jays have officially become even more so than the 2016 Cleveland Indians as the team that got closest to the World Series without winning it. Even before the 18-inning game and after, there are so many moments as a Blue Jays fan, you go back and say, if we would have got that one hit, or we could have made that one play.
Or if the ball hadn't gotten stuck in the wall.
Or that, which, by the way, I don't know why people are so upset about that. And here's why I say it. Because the call was confirmed on the field that it was a stuck ball. So it's a conspiracy theory. No. If the call was incorrect, they could have reversed the call, given the run to Miles Straw. Instead, what happens? The very next pitch, you get a line drive to left field, a catch, a throwback to second base, ball game. The game is over. And at that moment, Blue Jays fans, I think, knew, here we go again.
Yeah. And what's crazy is specifically in Game 7, I think Schneider, the Blue Jays manager, took Savage out of the game too early. I know he had gotten into trouble in, what was it, the bottom of the 8th, right?
Top of the 8th.
Top of the 8th, my bad. But we've seen how dominant he has been throughout this postseason.
He's also a young guy, though, and that was his first time coming out of the bullpen. That's the difference. Look at the Dodgers. I told you going into the postseason why I originally did not pick them to make the World Series is because the weakness of their team was their bullpen. And we saw that on display in game 3, against the Phillies, in Game 1 against the Blue Jays. They decided, let's not go to our bullpen at all besides Yusaki. Let's pitch literally all 5 of our starters in Game 7.
Yes. Which how Yamamoto was able to come back after throwing 90 plus
Oh,
pitches.
that was old school Sandy Koufax, Bob Gibson. That's stuff that they did like back in the 1920s, pre-World War One days. A guy goes out, throws 96 pitches, the next day in extra innings for 40 pitches. And that was really the difference in the series for me, is I've always said great pitching beats good hitting. And the Dodgers, unfortunately for you, Toronto, had the best single starting pitcher in the world today in Yoshi Yamamoto.
Yes. I will say, if the Dodgers go out and try and get like Tarek Skubal or trade for Paul Skeens, good God, that'll be a major turnoff for most baseball fans. You know that I mentioned this to you last week. The Dodgers are now, if you're counting the 2020 World Series, then they are 3-1 against the AL East. The only team they have not yet played in the World Series are the Baltimore Orioles. Does that mean the World Series next year is going to be at Camden Yards? Probably not. But the fact that they have done this well against the AL East, when you've got teams like the Red Sox, the Yankees, the Blue Jays, and I have to include the Rays in there because the Rays seem to find themselves in the postseason just about every season. At least it feels that way. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, I mean, credit to the Dodgers. I'm as much as I dislike them, I won't use the H word today. But I will say I dislike them as much as the Houston Asterisks. And when you get to that level of dislike for me, you can never come back. But again, I'm not going to use the H word with them. But I will say I am very happy for specifically Freddie Freeman, Mookie. Those two are my favorite players on the Dodgers, especially Freddie Freeman. His batting stance kind of reminds me of Griffey a little bit. I'm not saying Freddie Freeman's going to become Ken Griffey Jr. because Griffey's just too special of a hitter and an all-around player. But the way Freeman steps into the batter's box, it does remind me of Griffey in that regard. And with Mookie, like you mentioned earlier, his willingness to go, yeah, I'm one of the best outfielders, but on this team, yeah, I'm willing to move to the infield. And, you know, some of the defensive plays he makes. I know Mookie's a great hitter, but for me, it's the defense that makes him one of my favorites.
Absolutely. Well, Josh, you wanted to talk about this. So the World Series did take place in Toronto. We know they have a Major League Baseball team. We know they have a National Basketball Association team. We know, obviously, what they have in the National Hockey League, but they do not have a National Football League team.
And they also have a Major League Soccer team, Toronto FC. So I find it interesting that Toronto has 3 parts of the Big Four along with Major League Soccer, but they do not have an NFL team. And interestingly, I think it was from 2008 to 2013, the Buffalo Bills ran the Toronto series where they played actual regular season home games as well as a couple preseason games at the Rogers Center in Toronto. But then they terminated that in 2014.
I know, obviously, Buffalo's getting a new stadium, so I doubt that will continue.
Yes, I doubt it will come back, but I just think it's fascinating that Toronto is in the NBA, they're in the NHL, they're in Major League Baseball, they're in Major League Soccer, but they're not in the National Football League. I get that it's partially or majorly because Toronto has the Toronto Argonauts in the Canadian Football League, which I get it, but I do find it interesting at the same time.
Yeah, the NFL doesn't have any international teams. I do think eventually the NFL does want I don't know how realistic it's going to be, but is there a world where one day we see, instead of the Jacksonville Jaguars, the London Jaguars?
I don't
I think
think
it's
so, because I believe with the massive stadium renovations that they're doing, they put in a clause in the new deal to get the stadium renovations, like that, a clause that says they will not move.
okay. I mean, so if the NFL ever goes to 34 teams, is Toronto maybe one on the list? Sure. I think London, I think the NFL really wants it to get to London, which again, I don't know how. You're going to ask a lot of teams to go that far in international travel, which the NFL really wants to do, sort of an NBA-esque global expansion. There's been a lot of talks about when the schedule goes to 18 games, could be as soon as next year. Maybe there's 2 bye weeks. Maybe there's a point in the season where every team is playing at least one international game.
Right. And I feel like part of the reason too that Toronto isn't going to get an NFL team is because of their proximity to Buffalo.
And obviously, and we'll get to the Bills Chiefs game in a little bit. You saw all those Bills fans on Sunday with their Toronto Blue Jays hats on.
Yes. So I definitely think that's part of it. But to me, it's just fascinating that Toronto has the Raptors in the NBA, the Maple Leafs in the NHL, the Blue Jays in Major League Baseball, and Toronto FC in Major League Soccer, but no NFL team.
Well, speaking of the NFL, a certain NFL team decided to tank today at the NFL trade deadline. There were some other big moves of note as well. I think obviously the 2 big ones coming out of New York is Sauce Gardner. You have Quentin Williams on his way to Dallas. Howie Roseman, the Philadelphia Eagles, made 2 moves over the weekend. Jacksonville goes out. They acquired Jacoby Myers from from the Raiders. You have Raheed Shaheed going from New Orleans to Seattle.
Which, by the way, I think that's actually the biggest move of the trade deadline in my opinion.
I disagree with you there. I think there's 2 bigger moves, clearly.
I know. Quentin Williams going to Dallas.
No.
Okay.
The first big move is obviously Sauce Gardner to the Colts, right?
Yes.
You give up 2 first-round picks. Now, I don't know. I think 2 first-round picks is a lot to pay for any corner, especially Sauce Gardner, who's in a down year the last couple of years. It is telling you the Indianapolis Colts, who Josh Ungar believed, by the way, going into the season, that the Indianapolis Colts would be worse somehow than the Cleveland Browns. And now they just went out and I basically said, we think we are going to try to win the Super Bowl this year by acquiring Sauce Gardner.
And with this move, they also are basically saying, yeah, we believe in Daniel Jones as our starting quarterback.
Yes.
And yet, he only has a contract for this season. So either that means he's going to
they're going to extend him. I can almost guarantee at this point they're going to extend him.
Either he's going to get a Baker Mayfield-esque extension, like you're suggesting, or they might franchise tag him.
I don't think the Colts are going to franchise tag him. I think that would be a risky game to play. You don't want to piss off Daniel Jones or his agent. They're saying, look what we did for you. You move off Anthony Richardson, who was your 4th pick in the draft. You invested a lot in him. What I brought to you, which is stability, and I think he is potentially the next reclamation project, like we've seen with Baker, Sam Darnold. You could even make a case for Mac Jones now in San Francisco. But the other big move, and before I get to it, the reason why I don't think Quentin Williams is the second biggest move is because I don't care. Yes, the Cowboys may have 2 pretty good defensive tackles. Their defense is still garbage. They're not a playoff team. They got beat last night at home by Jacoby Brissett and the Arizona Cardinals. They have all this great talent, but they are still looking ahead to next year because they have a lot of holes to fill on both, in my opinion, the defensive line, the offensive line, the secondary. They got to find a way to move off either Deron Bland or Trayvon Diggs. They're both getting paid a lot of money and are either hurt or not producing. My general manager, meanwhile, Howie Roseman, went out and acquired a guy in Jalen Phillips, who, for a third-round pick, was a premier edge rusher in the NFL 2 years ago in 2023, under who as the Miami Dolphins defensive coordinator? Vic Fangio, who is now the defensive coordinator in Philadelphia. You add him on a team where he was the Dolphins' best pass rusher. Well, now he gets the help of, I don't know, maybe the best defensive player in football named Jalen Carter, a big moose in the middle in Jordan Davis, the return of Nolan Smith, Jackson Hunt, the return as well of Brandon Graham. He is going to be mixed into that rotation of pass rushers where he will get a lot of one-on-one looks. I think he's going to have a huge impact for my Eagles defense because of the defensive line. And then Jair Alexander, listen, I don't know if he's got anything left, but it was a low risk, basically no risk, high reward. You only give up a 6th-round pick. And if he does turn into something, well, then all of a sudden you've got Quinyon Mitchell, you've got Jair Alexander, who, if he returns to somewhat Pro Bowl form, you still have Cooper DeJean then manning the slot. Once again, tell me the weakness of this Philadelphia Eagles roster.
Didn't Howie make a third trade also?
And it was for the other Michael Carter, who was on the Jets. They have a running back named Michael Carter. He ended up taking a $5 million pay cut to go from probably the worst team in the NFL now in the Jets, if not the Saints or the Titans, to the Eagles to compete for a potential Lombardi trophy. Philadelphia gave up John Mechie, who got a grand total of 0 snaps with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Okay. So the reason I hear what you're saying about what the Eagles did. And I agree with you about everything with Indianapolis and Sauce Gardner. But for me, still, the number one move was what Seattle did by trading for Rashid Shaheed. And the reason is this. You have Jackson Smith and Jigba on the one side, which defenses have been sliding their coverage towards him because they know how much Sam Darnold likes to throw the ball to him. Well, now you have Shaheed on the other side who can take the top off the defense. So now, plus you have Cooper Kupp who could come back at some point. So when you have 2 receivers on the outside like that, yes, JSN is your definitive number 1, but still, you can't slide your coverage towards him when you got Shaheed on the other side. And basically, he doesn't have to relearn the offense in Seattle because he's got Kubiak as his offensive coordinator there. I think you're going to see Seattle do a lot more play action passing, which is going to be key because they have not yet played the Rams yet this season. The people at First Take thought the Seahawks had already faced the Rams, but they haven't.
They play the Niners week 1.
Yep.
They still have the Rams won twice, and they'll finish with Arizona this weekend. I think there are, I'm going to say 2, but it's really looped in a one flaw to your argument, which is, yes, per Pro Football Focus, Sam Darnold is the number 1 quarterback in football this year. A word I never thought I could say coming into the season about Sam Darnold going to Seattle. Here's the problem.
I will say, and I know we'll get to my top 5 MVPs. Him and Matt Stafford both slid up in my MVP rankings.
Well, here's the problem. I get what you're saying. He's a very good slot receiver. He was productive in New Orleans, no matter what bum quarterback they had when Drew Brees retired. Here's my thing for Seattle. It's 2 things, really. Number 1 is, where are they going to finish in not the NFC West, in the NFC standings? Are they going to get home playoff games in Seattle, or are they going to have to go on the road to a Philadelphia, maybe to a Tampa? Green Bay lost to Carolina, but maybe Green Bay is still in the playoff mix, and maybe they have to go to cold weather Green Bay, where those receivers are not going to be as effective, and Sam Darnold is not going to be as effective being on the road than he is in a home environment. And number two, we saw Sam Darnold last year with a great offensive mind, with weapons galore in Minnesota, lead the Minnesota Vikings for 17 weeks to a 14-2 record. Then in the final 2 games of his season, the regular season finale at Detroit and the wild card game at Minnesota, Sam Darnold turned back into pumpkin mode. How do we not know that Sam Darnold is not going to turn back into pumpkin mode again?
No, you have a very valid argument, and to a certain extent, I don't disagree with you. He does have to prove it up in Seattle, but I love what I've seen from him. I am a little surprised Seattle did not try to trade for a running back. It seemed like Breece Hall was available.
Well, they have Walker and Charbonnet. What do they need another running back for?
If you want, you could use Charbonnet and or Walker in the passing game, and then you bring in another running back, and you still have that two-headed monster.
Yeah, you still have the two-headed monster no matter what. You can put them both on the field at the same time.
That part is true, yes.
Teams don't play for unless you're San Francisco and you count Juszczyk as a fullback / running back. Teams don't put 3 backs out there in the backfield.
Well, unless you're Philadelphia, who had LeGarrette Blount, Jay Ajayi, and
well, that was 10 years ago.
2017.
On one play. I mean, if you want to say we use multiple backs to shove Jalen Hurts across the line of scrimmage in the play that is ultimately unstoppable, that I did not hear any complaints about this weekend, even though my team was on a bye week. Gee, I wonder why that was when every team in the NFL used it.
Yes, that's true. But no, I understand what you're saying, but so far I'm trusting Sam Darnold, and I think it's important. Those 2 games against the Rams are going to decide who wins the NFC West.
Oh, I think if the Seahawks get home field advantage, they are at least NFC Championship game ceiling, if not Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It's like remember we talked about this with the Vikings last year. You said if the Vikings beat the Lions and go 15-2, they are definitely a Super Bowl contender. And I said, well, yeah, the problem is I don't trust Sam Darnold. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they go week 18 to San Francisco. So they're going to play the Rams, I think, week 14 and then week 16. It's somewhere in there. Maybe it's 14, 17. I know they're pretty close relatively together. So that will be a big test because Sam Darnold is going to have to outduel Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams and Kyron Williams and Blake Corum and that Rams offense.
So they play at the Rams in week 11, and then they host the Rams on Thursday Night Football in week 16.
Okay, so that's 5 weeks apart. And depending on what San Francisco does, they're all beat to hell, but they're 6-3. And Shanahan typically owns McVay. They already beat the Rams and Seahawks. So if they can beat the Rams again this week, San Francisco's in pretty good shape as well.
Yeah, and Arizona is going with Jacoby Brissett now. We'll get more into that later, but they're not necessarily out of the mix. But
yeah, that Cardinals team last night was the Cardinals team I predicted that was going to win 10 games.
Yeah.
Since, of course, we haven't seen it this year.
No.
The one thing we did see, we talked about Daniel Jones here in the Indianapolis Colts. Well, they turned the ball over 5 times against the Steelers, 3 interceptions, 2 fumbles. And you can see by the score here, they did only lose by 7 points, though the majority of that was in garbage time. And I'm here to say, I think that was a blip on the radar. I think Pittsburgh came in angry after what happened to them at home on a Sunday night. We know Mike Tomlin typically does try to get the best out of his guys in that scenario. But to me, this really didn't tell me much about either team because what I saw out of the Steelers was the same thing I've been seeing and saying for the 8 games they have played this year, which is, sure, they have DK Metcalf, but guess what? He only had 2 catches for 6 yards on Sunday. They are a run the ball, throw the ball short, do not turn the ball over with Aaron Rodgers, and hope our defense gets turnovers. And their defense got 5 turnovers against the Colts, and they got 5 turnovers against the Patriots, and they won both those games. I don't think that's a coincidence, but nothing changed for me about the Steelers. And as I told you last week, it's ironic that the Baltimore Ravens, even with Lamar Jackson, are now 3-5. They are favored to win the division over the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they haven't even played yet, and the Steelers are up 2 games on them.
Yes. It's also ironic that the Steelers played like that defensively, because I don't know if you saw this, but fans were literally having a funeral for their defense outside the stadium during a tailgate. Like,
I did not see that, but that sounds funny.
They showed this on like Sunday NFL Countdown. They had fans like had an actual casket. It was yellow on the inside, and it said defense. It was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. By the way, from what I heard, the Steelers were trying to get Jacoby Myers before eventually he got traded to the Jaguars. Which
they need receiver help, and they didn't get any. So this offense is going to be, again, a pop gun offense going forward. And the Colts, the Steelers did their job, right? They stopped Jonathan Taylor. They forced Daniel Jones back to pass. The weird thing about it was it did feel like Pittsburgh controlled the whole game, yet it was only a 10-point game with 8 minutes remaining. And if it wasn't for that interception by Daniel Jones, maybe the Colts come back and win the game.
Yes. I also find it ironic that TJ Watt forced a fumble in this game, because guess who was on the call for
his
this
brother
game?
JJ.
Yes, his brother JJ. So maybe it's ironic or it's coincidental. I'm not entirely sure, but either way, I loved that little nugget. But for me, like you said earlier, the reason they won this game and the game earlier in the season at New England is because their defense actually remembered, we can force turnovers.
And here's the weird thing. This may sound weird. I don't really think of turnovers as like real stops. Like they're turnovers, like you force them. But it's not like the Colts weren't moving the ball up and down the field, right? It's not like the Steelers defense forced all these punts and they got back to playing dominating defense. To me, if you were to force 1 or 2 turnovers and you forced them to punt 5 or 6 times, that's more of a sign you're back, as opposed to, we forced 5 turnovers, because turnovers come in bunches. They're fluky.
Yes, that part is true, especially that first turnover, which the Steelers did not convert on, when the punt returner for the Colts just completely muffed it.
Yeah. And again, like, the crazy thing is, the Steelers may have been right. Like, what's the difference right now between Aaron Rodgers and Mason Rudolph? I can't tell you, besides the fact I think Aaron is smart and he gets them in and out of the huddle better and he's not taking sacks.
Yeah, think about this. The Steelers, once they on that first fumble by Daniel Jones and the interception, they got 14 points off those turnovers alone.
And this game felt over midway through the third quarter. You look up in the fourth and you're like, wait, the Colts are driving down 10. Are they going to make this a game? So if I'm a Steelers fan, no, I don't feel great about that win.
No. And I told you, and I still feel this way. This game was going to have a major impact on whoever on the AFC playoff picture. And I fully believe that, because now you have the Colts at 7-2. I believe the Patriots and Broncos are both 7-2, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm here to tell you, I don't care what you say, the Broncos are one of the worst 7-2 teams I've ever seen.
Okay. No, that's fair, because they've had to win a bunch of their games in the fourth quarter. I understand that.
But Bo Nix has played a grand total of about 6 good quarters this year. And ironically, it's all come against the NFC East. The fourth quarter against my Eagles, which, like the Falcons game in week 2 a year ago, I have no idea how we found a way to lose that game. the fourth quarter of the Giants game, which everybody knows if it wasn't for that interception by Jackson Dart, they probably would have watched that game. And the Cowboy game, which everybody and their mother is going up and down the field on Matt Eberflus's defense. It may not be as bad as the Bengals defense, but it's just as bad.
Yes. But still, that creates a three-way tie between the Colts, the Patriots, and the Broncos.
And the Colts have the Chiefs in a couple of weeks. And I told you, that game is going to be the test. We're going to find out how good the Colts are when they face Kansas City. Because I don't care. I told you this going into the Chiefs-Bills game. I don't care what their records are. Right here today, I'm picking that to be the AFC Championship game again. I don't care what seed they are. If there's a chance for them to match up in the playoffs, I believe they're going to match up.
Well, interestingly, right now, if the playoffs started this week, Kansas City would be out of the playoffs.
Yeah, they're going to take Jacksonville's spot, and I'm here to say that
Jacksonville holds the tiebreaker over them.
Well, I don't think the Jaguars are very good. I mean, they barely beat the Raiders. Brock Bowers had basically a game for the ages, and they have no other receiving weapons. But I do think Jacksonville could now potentially overtake the Chargers because the Chargers lost both their tackles.
Yeah, and they made
so I know this is kind of off topic, but let's look at the AFC playoff picture. Okay. So we already know we're going to get 4 division winners. So we know in the AFC East, one of Buffalo or New England is going to win the division. The other is more than likely to get a wild card spot. Okay. AFC South, we know, I would say at this point, it's very likely the Indianapolis Colts are going to win the division.
Yes.
Okay. So the AFC North, I would say it's down to the Steelers and the Ravens to win the division. I don't think there's going to be a second team that comes out of the North. I think you're only going to get one team coming out of the North. So that's your third spot. So with the AFC West, I think Denver's record is good enough where they're not going to have a complete collapse. They're going to make the playoffs. I think the Chiefs obviously are good enough. They're going to make the playoffs. So I look at it and I go, is it going to be the Chargers or is it going to be the Jaguars to get that last wild card spot?
Okay. Which the Jaguars, I would give them the advantage right now because they don't have Brian Thomas and Travis Hunter is down right now, which that trade is looking better and better for the Browns right now. I'll tell you that. Because
well, is it? I mean, it depends on what they do with that pick.
That part is true, yes. But the fact that Travis Hunter hasn't been able to stay on the field and be fully healthy makes it look like a better trade for the Browns. I will say that. And no, the Browns are not going to factor into the playoff picture. I'm not even going to be delusional.
Oh, really?
Trust me, I'm not delusional enough to say, the Browns.
They're going to be buyers at the trade deadline. They go out and they trade whatever that name is, Joe Triavalon, for a 6th-round pick. Oh, yeah, they did. By the way, the Jets, I know, completely off topic. I got to give the Jets credit. The Jets have decided we're bad. We're going to trade our expensive defensive players away. We're going to surround our rookie quarterback next year with offensive talent because my takeaway is they kept Garrett Wilson. They kept Breece Hall. They're going to buy some offensive linemen. They're probably going to buy another receiver, and they're going to draft defense to keep their defense cheap. Andrew Berry, you're paying $21 million or something like that to Denzel Ward. You're paying $40 million a year for Myles Garrett, who may or may not want to be here. Take notes from the Jets. Instead, the Browns' most expensive players are on the defensive side of the ball.
Yep. And God, the Browns play the Jets this week in New Jersey.
And would you believe the Browns opened up as underdogs and now they're 2.5-point favorites?
Yeah, that game's going to be like two ugly people fighting each other.
Let's go to a game that was not two ugly people fighting each other, but honestly, it could have been ugly. I was shocked at how much Buffalo, and I'm going to use the D word here, I think they dominated the game. The Chiefs looked like they just did not want to show up. They did not want to play. Buffalo got a lot of pressure on Patrick Mahomes, which is exactly what the Buccaneers and Eagles did in their 2 Super Bowl victories over Mahomes. And the other thing is this: Josh Allen was barely touched all day. I think he only missed 3 passes.
Yeah.
James Cook was incredible in the run game. And the Chiefs, and this is what we both said coming into this game, was you look at Kansas City, and yes, we all think the Chiefs, no matter what their record is, they're right up there in Super Bowl odds. But the one thing they have had in the past couple of years that they do not have this year is the ability to run the football. I suspect they were trying to get Breece Hall at the trade deadline, and the Jets would not let them have him.
Well, from what I heard on that is the Chiefs offered a 4th-round pick, and the Jets wanted a 3rd-round pick for him.
And if I'm Kansas City, I would have paid a 3rd-round pick for him because they can't run the ball.
No.
I mean, they have Kareem Hunt.
Think about this for a second. They used Clyde Edwards-Helaire on Sunday against the Bills.
The infamous, who was a 1st-round pick, by the way, and has been gone, I think, out of the league for 2 or so years, was on the Chiefs practice squad, which I wasn't even aware of till they brought him in the game.
Yes. But I want to give credit to Brandon Beane because, yes, they were decimated on defense. Who knows if they're going to get Ed Oliver back this season? Maybe if they make a deep playoff run, he might be back by then. But
Joey Bosa has been amazing for them.
That's exactly where I was going with it. To go out and get Joey Bosa, now it certainly helped that Kansas City did not have their 1st-round pick, Josh Simmons. It sounds like he's back in the building.
And Jawan Taylor was out too. But again, the weird thing about the Chiefs is it feels like their offensive line is fixed, and then all of a sudden it goes to a disaster again.
Yeah. And it feels like the Bills went out and made specific draft picks and made specific free agency moves in order to beat the Chiefs. But
I agree. But you know what we both said, and this was really us assuming that Joe Burrow was going to be healthy for the Bengals. We said, actually, Buffalo matches up well against Kansas City. They don't really match up well against Cincinnati. They kind of match up against Baltimore. You can make the argument, but they are obsessed with the Chiefs. And we both said that in retrospect, even though the standings now may change and it may make it harder for the Chiefs to win the AFC West, that in macro sense, this game didn't matter as much because it's all about what can the Bills beat the Chiefs in the postseason. I mean, this is turning into, you can make an argument, the Kansas City Chiefs are the Golden State Warriors and the Buffalo Bills are the James Harden Houston Rockets.
Yeah, you could definitely make that argument. Mahomes, Allen has quickly become Brady Manning, except for the fact that Manning was able to beat Brady in the playoffs. Allen has not been able to do that yet. But I told you going into this game last week, I told you I thought this game was more important for the Buffalo Bills because New England already has a game in hand on them by beating the Bills in Buffalo, and the Bills still have to go to Foxborough later in the season.
I think that they will win that game, and I'm here to make a prediction. I don't think it will be close. And I think if Buffalo and New England were to meet in the playoffs, Buffalo would win, and I don't think it would be close because I think New England is still a year away. I know you're in love with Drake May, but did you not see the Falcons game on Sunday?
Oh, I know. He's getting hit like crazy. I get it.
They are getting sacked a lot. And that's my one concern about New England is their offensive line is not as good. And Drake London did a number on that secondary. And I like Drake London, but I don't think he's the greatest receiver in the world.
No. And if they had a legit kicker, they would have won that game. They would have sent
the game to overtime.
By the way, the Falcons cut Parker Romo and signed Zane Gonzalez, their third kicker of the season.
What happened to Koo? I thought he was supposed to come back. Is he out for the year?
I have no idea.
So, well, speaking of another NFC team that got exposed, you know,
I told you this could be a
trying to
trap
tell
game
me
for the
be
Panthers.
careful about this game. And I said if it was in Carolina, I would agree with you. But clearly the Packers, I did not know this, and I found this stat out about Friday, and I was thinking about you when I heard this stat, and I honestly should have listened to you. Because the Packers, in their last 10 games, when they are favored by at least 6.5, they are 4-6 straight up.
I think they were like 12.5-point favorites going into this game.
I think it was somewhere between 12.5 and 13. And they're wearing those old school, classic, ugly uniforms.
Oh,
and
God. Thank God they
did
not wear those against the Steelers. Lord have mercy.
They did not show up at all. Jordan Love had a pass that looked like Brett Favre turned back the clock, where he basically threw it from the left side of the field to the right side of the field to nowhere near the end zone for an interception.
Yeah, he threw it. I remember the one pass he threw into triple coverage.
Yeah, and that was picked off. So,
yeah.
Now the interesting thing is Tucker Kraft is out for the year, and he's been a tremendous tight end for them. He was on my fantasy team. Big blow for the fantasy team and for Green Bay. But I do wonder now if this is going to force them to actually use their first-round pick in Matthew Golden, who's been a bust.
Yeah. But I thought the Panthers could catch the Bills in a trap game since Buffalo had Kansas City the following week. But it seems like they caught Green Bay in the trap because guess what? And we'll get to this in the next subtopic. Green Bay hosts Philadelphia this week on Monday Night Football.
Okay, but before we get to that game, let me ask you this, since we're talking about the Carolina Panthers and trap games. Do you think now the Panthers are in a trap game, coming off that big, high, emotional game? Now they got to take on the lowly Tyler Shough and the New Orleans Saints, who aren't any good. Is there a chance for the Saints, who are a division rival of the Panthers, to catch the Panthers in a trap game?
I doubt it. Because this Panthers team, they're a game over 500. And
by the way, they're 2 games over the Falcons, and they already beat the Falcons this year.
Yes, they shut out the Falcons 30-0.
Am I correct? You picked Atlanta to win the division, or you had them as a fringe playoff team?
No, I picked Atlanta to win the division. You are correct.
So right now they're in 3rd place.
Yes, I know. Shows how much I know. But well, because like I said, I believed in Michael Penix and Drake London, and I
just said I like their roster, but I gotta see more. And they went out this year. They beat the Vikings with J.J. McCarthy, who then goes on the road to Detroit, plays the best game he's played since the national championship game, easily, when he was the quarterback at Michigan. They beat Detroit, and Atlanta, they beat Buffalo, and they haven't won since.
No. But in terms of the Panthers, what are they, 4-0 in the last 4 games that Bryce Young has started? I think that's the stat.
I think you're right.
Yeah. And who's the one on this show that's been saying, will the real Bryce Young please stand up?
Well, technically, you're the one that have used the phrase. We both said that. You were higher a little bit more on the Panthers than me, and it's only because I didn't know, with all the good teams in the NFC, how good Carolina could be, because I thought they were 3rd in their division behind Atlanta. But right now, they're better than Atlanta.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Like I said, they're a game over 500. They're running the ball really well with Rico Dowdle.
And Chuba Hubbard, who has now basically gone to the bench for Rico Dowdle, who, I don't know, there's a certain owner in Dallas that could have paid him and decided not to.
Yeah. Maybe they could have beaten the Bills 2 weeks ago if they stuck with Rico Dowdle and not split carries with Chuba Hubbard, but I don't know.
Without going to the game, Andy Dalton started. I don't know if they really realistically had a chance.
Fair. But I've shitted on the Panthers for years because their owner, David Tepper, seems to be one of the more incompetent owners in the NFL.
And that's the other thing, too. You got to give a lot of credit to head coach Dave Canales, who was with Tampa Bay, resurrected Baker Mayfield's career. When they hired him in Carolina, nobody even knew he interviewed for the job. It was like, wait, he was what? He was the Bucs offensive coordinator. Now the Panthers hired him? What? And here he is in year 2, and he's got the Panthers looking like maybe not a great team, but they're not the Titans. They're not the Jets. They're not the Saints. They're not the Browns.
No.
They're not the Giants.
No.
I mean, dare I say they're not the Cowboys? I mean, they are.
You gotta say it right now. They're a fringe playoff team. They're somehow.
Well, here's why I'm reserved to say that. Let's look at the NFC playoff picture now. Let's just take out the Cowboys, right?
The NFC North. Let me just say this.
Go ahead.
The NFC North is by far the best division in football. I don't know right now who is going to win that division. Because, like you said earlier,
I'll tell you right now who's going to finish 4th in that division. I think it's going to be the Vikings.
Interesting. But you got Green Bay, who loses to Carolina at home. You got Minnesota, who you just said is going to finish 4th. They go on the road and beat the Lions. You got the Lions, obviously, and then you have the Bears probably winning the craziest game I've ever seen.
Oh, my God, Caleb Williams. For all of you that doubted Caleb Williams, that was the Caleb Williams I thought we were going to see a year ago. But nonetheless, Matt Eberflus couldn't coach. He finally has a real coach in Ben Johnson. Their defense is garbage, but at least they're winning games. But to your point, the Eagles, the Rams, the Niners, the Seahawks, the Bucks, the Bears, the Packers, the Vikings, the Lions. It's 9 teams. I would say right now they are all definitively better than Carolina, so I cannot put Carolina anywhere in the playoff picture.
Well, I said Carolina's a fringe playoff team. I didn't say for sure.
Well, they're a fringe. You can't be a fringe playoff team if you're 10th in the conference. If you're 8th, maybe 9th. I think 10th's a little bit too deep. And I think Arizona, to be honest with you, I know it was a close game. I think Arizona's got more dudes than Carolina. They just can't finish games.
They have a rematch in Seattle this week. If you remember, Seattle won that game on Thursday.
In overtime. And I'm telling you right now, a spoiler alert for Brandon's world, Seattle's a 6.5-point favorite. I think Seattle probably wins, but I'm taking Arizona with the points. I think that's too many points. Those two teams always play it close, and I love the way Jacoby Brissett's playing.
Yeah, but to get back to the main topic, did the Packers get exposed? Yes, I think they did get exposed a little bit.
It makes me nervous for this game coming up, because I think the Packers are going to bounce back. I think they're going to be angry. This is obviously a rematch of the wild card game, and this is something that nobody has brought up yet on national television because they probably won't talk about this game until later in the week. But who in the offseason decided let's introduce legislation to ban the most unstoppable play in the history of the NFL, the brotherly shove, a.k.a. the team that tried to run it a couple years ago and Jordan Love fell down flat on his face, the Green Bay Packers. If I am the Philadelphia Eagles, I know we're coming off a bye, and this may be petty, and it may not be good for the overall success of the game. But the first play of the game, I am lining up in brotherly shove formation.
I told you this game a couple weeks ago before the Buccaneers-Lions game, before I changed my mind and switched to the Bucs-Lions game. What was I saying about the winner of this game?
Well,
Do you
it's what
remember?
I said going into the year, that this game was going to decide the number one seed in the NFC, which, for the record, the bye week for my Philadelphia Eagles couldn't have gone more beautiful if it tried. The Cowboys lost. The Commanders' season's over. The Giants lost. Green Bay lost. And Detroit lost. Pretty much everybody outside the Rams were chasing for the number one seed lost.
Yeah. So your Philadelphia Eagles, by doing nothing, are back in the number one seed. This game, it does feel like it's a simmering rivalry is forming with these two. Because if you remember, they played a really good game last year down in Brazil, and then it came down to the final seconds in that wild card matchup last year in Philly.
And Jordan Love did not have a good game. Dallas Goedert had the stiff arm. I believe it was on Xavier McKinney and got to the end zone that really changed the game at that moment. The thing about Green Bay is, do you know this year they're fifth in rushing attempts, but they're only 23rd in total rushing yards? So a lot like Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs is not having the year that he had last year. The difference is Philadelphia has the receivers. Green Bay, it looks like does not, because, as I mentioned earlier, Matthew Golden's been a no-show. Romeo Dobbs has been good, and obviously they'll try to get Christian Watson more involved. But this Green Bay team is a team that I thought was going to take a leap overall, especially with the Micah Parsons acquisition.
You and I both have the Packers making the Super Bowl. I have them beating the Ravens. You have them losing to the Bills.
And if we were to do a mid-season amendment, I don't think either of us would pick Green Bay to come out of the NFC.
No, I would actually consider taking Seattle. As of right now, yes.
Obviously, I think everybody that has watched championship rings and knows me knows who I'm taking at this current moment to get out of the NFC.
My God. If the NFC championship is Seahawks against the Eagles, that would be fun.
Oh, you know my horror story about playing the Seattle Seahawks. I tried to explain this to you a couple years ago, right before Drew Lock on a Monday night.
I remember this.
Came into my building with Coach Pencil's first game.
No, that was in Seattle.
It was in Seattle. And oh my God, I have no idea how we lost that game, but that was the official beginning of the collapse of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, and I was in Seattle for a Seahawks game back in 2023 against the Browns. That stadium is no joke. It is.
Yeah. It's why I have a fear of going to Seattle, because it is my ultimate house of horrors. Tampa Bay was my house of horrors until this year, and now we're back in Seattle being the house of horrors.
Yes, but you know what's an interesting aspect of this game that I don't know if a lot of people are going to talk about? You mentioned it earlier. Who was the player how he traded for? He played cornerback.
Jair Alexander, who was a Pro Bowl for Green Bay for at least a few seasons. Didn't work out there at the end. He was a healthy scratch for Baltimore. So we don't know what he has left, but if he has anything left, it will be an addition for this Eagles team.
But the reason I'm specifically bringing up Jair Alexander is because of the point you just made. He was a Pro Bowler for what team? Oh, that's right. The Packers. And they are playing in Green Bay this week. So is it a coincidence that Howie traded for him the week you guys are playing in Green Bay? I don't think so. I
have no idea why teams still decide to make trades with the Eagles, but please continue to do so.
Yes. Yeah, if Howie calls you, just hang up instantly.
Oh, man. Like I said, going back to that trade, Jalen Phillips, we'll see how much of an impact he has. But by the way, the Eagles still have a first, a second, 2 thirds, 2 fourths. They're still loaded. Giving up a third-round pick isn't going to mean much.
Dude, there was a lot of conversation going around on social media that the Eagles actually tried to trade with the Browns for Myles Garrett.
Yeah, and by the way, I do believe that could be real because I don't know if you know this. Andrew Berry, not only did he come from the Eagles to the Browns, but his twin brother, still works in the Eagles organization.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if the Browns and Eagles do a bit of business in the offseason. But getting back to this game, I want to see how Jalen Hurts does coming off the bye because he wins Super Bowl MVP, and this season, for the most part, it seems like he's hasn't really missed a beat. But throughout the season, at the same time, the offense hasn't quite looked the same. There's been issues.
Well, the last couple weeks, though, it started week 7 against the Vikings. It carried over week 8 against the Giants. I think those extra 10 days that they got, which was a mini bye between the Giants and the Vikings game, they changed some things schematically, started going more under center. I am hoping that we can get Cam Jurgens back, the center who ended up missing the Giants game, and really the offensive line that's been banged up almost the whole year. If they get healthy and they start creating more holes again for number 26 in the backfield, that's when you as a defense have a problem on your hands.
I do wonder if the Eagles are going to start using more designed quarterback runs with Jalen.
I think we're going to do it when we have to, more so mainly in the postseason. A lot like Buffalo, who, remember, Tony Romo pointed out on the Sunday broadcast against Kansas City, they haven't been using Josh Allen as a runner much until when they had to play Kansas City, and they busted it out at the right time. So I do like the fact that outside of week 1, Jalen Hurts is not running the ball as much. I don't want him taking that punishment. I think the most underrated aspect of this Eagles team this year is Jalen Hurts has had 1 fumble that was against the Rams in week 3 and 1 interception that was against the Giants in week 6. He has not turned the ball over very much. It's efficiency. And if he continues to do that, it's really hard to beat this Eagles team.
So, in my opinion, the key player for you guys offensively, not just in this game against Green Bay, but moving forward, is not Jalen Hurts, it's not A.J. Brown, and it's not Saquon. It's the receiver opposite of A.J., the Heisman Trophy winner out of Alabama, Devontae. I think Devontae is the key for you guys offensively down the stretch because A.J. Brown, to me, is more the big physical wide receiver that you just throw it up and he can, basically out-rebound you, or you know what I mean?
Yes.
Continue. Whereas Devontae, as I was kind of saying about Rashid Shaheed earlier, and why I love the trade for him going to Seattle, Devontae is the one that can take the top off the defense. I personally think he should have won Super Bowl MVP last year. No discredit to Jalen Hurts in any regard. But you saw on that bomb Jalen Hurts threw, was that in the second half?
It was when they were up 34-7.
Okay, so you know exactly what play I'm talking about.
Of course, I watch that play, I think, every day this offseason.
So, and I'm not saying the Eagles need to throw that type of pass to Devontae every time, but use him in that type of frame, if you know what I mean.
See, I think the key isn't one single player. I think it's a unit. I think it's the offensive line.
But do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, but I think this Eagles team goes as the offensive line and Saquon Barkley goes. And I think it goes as much as Jalen Hurts can distribute the football.
I also, to that point, yes, they need to get the run game going, but I'd like to see them use the play action more.
Which is what I kept saying they started doing against Minnesota and the Giants, going more under center, play action. You saw the deep touchdown to Devontae Smith against the Vikings in that Minnesota game. So it'll be very interesting. Coming off a bye, with the Lions coming over after that, a short day, a Sunday night game, and then you have your arch rival Cowboys. It's a 3-week pretty brutal stretch here coming off the bye.
And here's my other thing. You got, with Green Bay, it's not just Micah Parsons. It's Rashawn Gary and, of course, others.
Which is why Mawaya and Lane Johnson and Micah Parsons has had success against the Eagles in his career.
So I'm wondering if the Eagles are going to try and use more bootlegs with Jalen Hurts to try and roll him away from the pressure.
I don't think so. Jalen's not really a bootleg quarterback. He's not an under center, play fake it, roll out to the right type quarterback. That's not really his scheme. If they're going to do it, it's more of a gun-based scheme. And again, he really does it if he has to buy time and he can make up for on the run. But he is mostly in the pocket. If he's going to run, he'll escape and run. He doesn't throw a lot outside of the pocket. So I don't think they're going to do a lot of the bootlegs.
Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. But you know Rashawn Gary and Micah Parsons are going to want to come after him. So
their version of the bootleg is an RPO pop pass to Goddard in the flat, where it's a gun play where Goddard comes across. It's been very successful this year, especially in the red zone. Goddard comes across, and when they go to hand it to the running back, he will fake it and just do a little rollout to the right or the left and hit Goddard in the flat.
So, me personally, I'd like to see the Eagles use a little bit more bootleg offense in this game to roll Jalen away from the pressure that you know Green Bay is going to bring.
Well, this game, I would imagine, is both of our number one games for the week. But let's get into the other. So obviously, Josh mentioned we all know Eagles Packers is number one. But I'm going to go from 5 to 1 here. Number 5. We talked about the Toronto Blue Jays potentially getting an NFL team. The NFL may be going overseas. Let's go overseas. Let's go to Germany, where the Atlanta Falcons will take on the newly acquired Sauce Gardner and the Indianapolis Colts. We talked about both these teams a little bit earlier. The Falcons with Michael Penix having a little bit of a disappointing season. If they lose this game and the Panthers beat the Saints, it almost feels like their season may be over. And for Indianapolis, they're trying to bounce back after the loss to Pittsburgh. Sauce Gardner has already made an international trip this year to London with the Jets. So maybe he's an expert for the team now on international travel. But it'll be interesting to see how many reps he gets and to see if he does shadow one Drake London. Number 4. A very interesting, I think, a low-scoring, physical mouse math battle in the AFC. Sunday Night Football, where Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers take on Jim Harbaugh and the Los Angeles Chargers. This would have been the Najee Harris revenge game for the Chargers if he was healthy this season. The Chargers are missing Joe Alt, Rashawn Slater, Mekhi Becton. Will that offensive line be able to hold up against TJ Watt, Hines Smith, Cam Hayward, and then Steelers defensive line? If the Steelers defense is truly back, I think they should win the line of scrimmage and, quite frankly, have a dominating game against mostly backups on that Charger offensive line.
SoFi is going to look like a Steelers home game on Sunday night.
Yes. Number 3. Talked about this a little bit earlier as well. We are going to the NFC West, but it is not the Rams-Niners matchup. It's the other one between the Arizona Cardinals and the Seattle Seahawks. These two teams always play entertaining games. Arizona is coming off a massive win against the Cowboys on Monday night. Seattle is coming off the thrashing of the Commanders. But these two teams always play it close. And I'm interested to see if this Arizona team that's been in every game this year and is still 3-5, how tough they play the Seahawks, who, again, are looking like potential Super Bowl contenders. And number 2 on this list, it is basically the Tom Brady Bowl between the New England Patriots, who are going on the road. This is their first real test since week 5 against the Buffalo Bills when they had to go on the road on Sunday night. How will they handle Baker Mayfield, Emeka Buka, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense, who are coming off a bye, and Tampa is trying to keep pace with the Eagles and Rams for a potential number 1 seed in the NFC.
Okay. So for them, and then you have Eagles Packers number 1.
Yes.
Okay. So at number 5, that's where I have Patriots Buccaneers. If the Buccaneers had Chris Godwin and Mike Evans healthy, this game would be much higher on the list for me. But because of those 2 injuries, it's a little lower for me. But it'll still be a really good test for New England. Like you said, this is their first true test since that Week 5 game at Buffalo. They're still facing Baker Mayfield and Emeka Buka. So I echo what you're saying. Can the Patriots go on the road and beat one of the top NFC contenders? At number 4, I'm surprised you didn't have this game on your list. It's the battle of the color purple. Ravens, Vikings. The Vikings are coming off of a very impressive win in Detroit against the Lions. Meanwhile, the Ravens, they made a couple additions today. I like the addition of Draymond Jones at linebacker for them. And they got Lamar Jackson back. They destroyed the Miami Dolphins on Thursday Night Football. This is the second game of a 3-game road trip for them, which finishes next week in Cleveland. So it's a very interesting spot for both of these teams. So Ravens, Vikings for me. You had Cardinals, Seahawks in number 3. I've got the other NFC West game here. I've got Rams, 49ers. Actually, I have that number 2. Number 3, I agree with you. Steelers, Chargers. You got the Steelers coming west, so they're going to have to take a day off to travel out west. Does that affect them? I don't really think so, but it is a factor. And, of course, like you said, the Chargers are basically going to be playing backups on their offensive line. Can TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Casey Hayward take advantage of that? And for the love of God, will somebody else step up as a wide receiver for the Steelers? It seemed like they went to Calvin Austin a little bit, but not enough to where I would say, oh, yeah, he's the definitive number 2.
We talked about this order earlier. There is a reason why they tried to get Jacoby Myers.
Yes. And then at number 2, this is where I have Rams 49ers. This is one of the better rivalries in the NFL. Of course, they played that classic NFC Championship game a couple years ago that was won by the Rams en route to when they won Super Bowl 56 against the Bengals. But the Rams are let me double check. They're 6-2, I think.
I believe so, because they had a bye week 8.
Yes, they are 6-2. 49ers are 6-3. The 49ers, of course, beat the Rams on Thursday Night Football in SoFi. So if they can win this game and sweep, that's a huge feather in their cap, especially because they already beat the Seahawks in Week 1 in Seattle.
Real quickly on San Francisco, can I say something for every football fan and every fantasy football fan out there in America? Why are these guys lying about all their injuries? What the hell is going on with Brock Purdy, Ricky Pearsall, Brandon Ayuk, who was supposed to be back by like week 4 or week 5, and all of a sudden, he's still kind of hurt. Or Brock Purdy, who was going to come back 3 weeks ago, but all of a sudden, that turf toe, it don't feel real good. Or Ricky Pearsall, who was supposed to only miss 1 game, and all of a sudden he's missed 4.
Yeah. And then at number 1, Eagles, Packers. Nothing more needs to be said about that.
I guess, like, I don't know what to make of San Francisco because they're so beat up. I don't know if they're good or if they're going to fall apart.
Yeah. Let's see. Regarding dishonesty about injury.
My mind immediately goes to gambling these days. I mean, yeah, obviously. Now, the interesting thing is, if you really want to get into a debate, I think Mac Jones looks like a carbon copy of Brock Purdy, just he's not being paid. Brandon Ayuk, I've had him on my fantasy team all year long this year, and he's been on my IR since week 1 because they said he was going to be out 6 weeks. And here we are in week 10, and they haven't even opened his practice schedule. They have Kendrick Bourne, and they threw to a lot in that Niners game that haven't thrown to him since. So I don't know what's going on with San Francisco.
Yeah, and the Browns play him in just a couple weeks here in Cleveland.
That is true. All right, Josh. Well, we teased this last week. It is time to do what I probably think should be maybe a bi-weekly or some sort of weekly segment on championship rings. Let's see Josh Ungar unveil his MVP candidates to this point in the NFL season.
So at number 1, from the New England Patriots, in his second year, and finally, we're seeing him actually become a good quarterback, even though he's got destroyed by both the Falcons and the Browns. I still have Drake May, number 1. So going into last week, I had Jonathan Taylor, number 2. But the Steelers kind of bottled him up for the most part, so he takes a bit of a slide. And moving up to number 2, from the Seattle Seahawks, you have him on pumpkin watch, Sam Darnold. You want to talk about a resurgence? I mean, he's drafted by the Jets, and do you remember after the one game against the Patriots, he said he was seeing ghosts?
Yeah. And I was not the biggest fan of him coming out of college at USC either. I thought he had a weird delivery, a weird windup. Yeah.
I did consider Jackson Smith and Jigba. I really did. But unfortunately, a wide receiver winning MVP is just not going to happen. At number 3, supposedly he had a back injury that was going to keep him out. It certainly doesn't look like it because he's been destroying people left and right. Even when Puka went out, he just goes, okay, I'm going to go to Devontae instead. From the LA Rams, Matt Stafford. And then at number 4, that's where I have Jonathan Taylor. I think the Steelers did a really good job of not allowing him to beat them. And they just said, okay, Daniel Jones, you have to beat us. And he couldn't. So that's why he slides down the list and falls in at number 5. So for me, Jordan Love has fallen off of my top 5 MVP list.
And he was my preseason MVP coming into the year, and I don't disagree with you. I'm going to ask you one question about a guy who was not on this list. But let's say, I think you'll know where I'm going when I say the team. If this team is the number 1 seed in the AFC, do you think that old Daddy Nichols has a chance to win MVP?
Certainly. The amount of the story would write itself because, he gets the one playoff win with the Giants against the Minnesota Vikings, but outside of that, he really didn't do anything, and Giants fans wanted to run him out of town, and he's come to Indianapolis, well, after a quick stint with Minnesota, and, he's got Michael Pittman, he's got Tyler Warren, he's got Alec Pierce. Interestingly, they trade A.D. Mitchell, but he's resuscitated his career. So, yes, if they capture the number 1 seed, yes, I think he would win MVP.
Now, I'm not saying this team's going to fall off and they're going to win 11, 12 games, but let's say they don't win the division. But how crazy would it be if the final 3 MVP candidates would not be, let's say, a Drake May because they don't win the division in the AFC East. But let's say it's Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, and Daniel Jones.
Good God, that would be an interesting group. You want to talk about turning your career around? Those
That's where I was heading with that. And all three of those guys were top 6 draft picks, went to garbage organizations, and found the right home.
Yeah, of course.
It fears for my wife. Jets, Browns, who Titans, maybe if Cam Ward doesn't work out there, watch Cam Ward be really good somewhere else. Whoever you pick in the NFL draft this year, just know you're probably going to hell.
Yeah. And with all the trades the Jets made today, they basically control the draft. Yeah. And I feel
Go ahead.
I feel like the loser of this Browns Jets game
is the winner.
Is
actually the winner.
Yes.
All right. One last topic for the night. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
If you're Fernando Mendoza, who is now the projected #1 pick out of Indiana, do you really want to go to either the Jets or the Browns? I don't.
Let's talk about this because Canada versus USA women's hockey is going down, as well as the Dallas Stars are set to host the NHL Stadium Series at AT&T Stadium.
Yes. So on Thursday at Rocket Arena, we've got the rivalry series, and it's one of the fiercest rivalries in all of sports. USA versus Canada in hockey, it is usually fierce. It is one of the best matchups you'll ever see. They usually play games that are physical. There's usually some hard hitting. There's going to be a couple fights, I would suspect. This is part of a 4-game series that they're doing. So game 1 is going to be Thursday at Rocket Arena. And then game 2, I believe, is Saturday at the KeyBank Center, home of the Buffalo Sabres. And then the next 2 games will be up in Canada. But USA Canada, like I said, it's one of the fiercest rivalries in all of sports. It is a must-watch event. And then with the Dallas Stars, they actually hosted the Winter Classic back in 2020 at the Cotton Bowl against the Nashville Predators. And now they're going to host the 2027 Stadium Series at AT&T Stadium, home of the Dallas Cowboys. We don't yet know who the opponent is, but they're calling this an outdoor game, even though, with AT&T Stadium, you have the option of closing the roof. But I just wonder, whoever the goalie is going to be looking, and that the glow from the windows is going to be right in their face.
Yeah, I have a quick question about that. So I know the NHL has been doing this stadium series for years now at football stadiums mostly. They did it one time at a baseball stadium. No,
they've done like the Winter Classic at baseball stadiums. They've done like they did Penguins Bruins at Fenway Park. The Washington Capitals hosted a Winter Classic, and they did it at Nationals Park. So, yes, they have done it at baseball stadiums. When the Seattle Kraken played the Vegas Golden Knights in the Winter Classic, they actually did it at the Mariners Stadium.
That was going to be my next question. Have they ever done it in a dome?
They're doing the Winter Classic this year at the Miami Marlins Stadium.
Because I just think aesthetically that's going to look so weird with the arena and the way the seating is, but you're indoors, so there's also a roof.
Yeah, I know.
I would think the vision in some of those seats are going to be terrible for fans.
Yeah, it's going to be weird. But I will be at the Rocket Arena on Thursday for this USA versus Canada rivalry series. Yes, it is women's hockey, but that doesn't take anything away from it. It is USA Canada. They play very close games. I expect it to be like a 3-2 or 4-3 type of game. I don't think it'll be a blowout either way. I don't know any of the players for either team, so it's going to be a completely new experience. But again, it's USA Canada. You mentioned this to me off air that we've got the Olympics coming up, so it's interesting timing for this to be happening.
Correct. And I'm also interested to see how this does against Thursday Night Football because it is Raiders-Broncos. Should not be the greatest game in the world.
Yes. This game will be airing on NHL Network if you want to watch it.
Oh, so ESPN does. I thought it would be like an ESPN or TNT type game.
No, it's going to be on NHL Network.
Oh, because it's not a part of the NHL, but it kind of is. Okay, I gotcha.
Yes. But even still, it's good. I think it's going to be a really good game. Like I said, it's one of the best rivalries. You go back to Four Nations, the USA. And
That's
Canada.
what I was going to say. Last year, that Four Nations concept was, I think, was it the most watched hockey game ever?
Oh,
it was an instant success. It had people talking about hockey for 3 days. I have not heard much buzz about this at all. So I know it's a little going to be on that.
It's a little disappointing that there hasn't been a lot of buzz about this. But there was no way I was going to miss this. Interestingly, they only have the lower bowl open for this game. They're not opening the Loudville part of Rocket Arena. I do
probably because of the camera angle. You can get fans down and will make it look full the way they shoot it.
I do think it's interesting that they're doing this game on Thursday because tomorrow, November 5th, you got the Cavaliers hosting the Philadelphia 76ers. We will be debuting our classic jerseys in that game.
My favorite jersey of all time, by the way, those dark blues.
Yes. And with that classic court, I will be at that game as well. And then on Friday, the Monsters host the Providence Bruins, AHL affiliate of the Boston Bruins. And then on Saturday, November 7th, it's a doubleheader at Rocket Arena because you got the Bruins facing the Monsters in the afternoon. And then at night, the Chicago Bulls are here in Cleveland to take on the Cavaliers. So, yeah. So it's interesting timing of when they're doing this game.
A very, very busy weekend for sure at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. But that is going to conclude this edition of Championship Ring. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back next week where we will react to what's coming up in about a half an hour, which is the first unveiling of the committee's college football rankings. We'll talk week 10 of the 2025 NFL season and anything else that comes up in the world of sports. For Brandon Lewis, that was Brandon's World. He is Ungar to the Max, that was the Sports Room Talk Show, Josh Ungar. And Josh, go ahead and close us out.
Next week, one of the biggest rivalries in college basketball is going down from the KFC Yum Center in Louisville, Kentucky. It is the Battle of Kentucky. The Kentucky Wildcats against the Louisville Cardinals. It is the second biggest rivalry in college basketball behind Duke, North Carolina. I will continue to drill this home to you. Duke, North Carolina is a top 3 rivalry in all of sports. I don't care what you say, Brandon.
Top 3 is a stretch, but we may argue that next week. We're going to get out of here. Have a great week, guys. We'll talk to you next week on Championship Rings.
Bye-bye.